Hi, welcome to VerityHearts. It's Vera. Welcome to part 2 of my exploration of gaslighting. It's a really big topic. And when I recorded the video initially, it was way too long for one video, so I've had to split it up across 2 parts. This is part 2. Part 2 is where we look at how do you know you're being gaslighted and how do you deal with gaslighting. So follow along where you can. Now, if you haven't watched part 1, that's a really important one to watch as well. I share a little bit of my story, and there might be some information in there that might resonate with you. Also gives a bit of a background as to why I started exploring this topic of gaslighting. We look at the definition of, what is gaslighting? What is it we're talking about specifically? And how does a gaslighter work? Some of their tricks that they use. So really useful information. Watch part 2 if you like, but at the end, make sure you go back and watch part 1. So how do you know if you're being gaslighted? Now, this is the biggest telltale sign that someone is trying to gaslight you. You look for signs where they are repeatedly denying your experiences. They're denying your stories and they're denying your views. Now, this is happening repeatedly. Number 2, you find yourself second-guessing yourself and your decisions. You feel stuck, you feel confused, you can't actually make a decision. You question your decision. Number 3, you don't even know how to respond anymore. You question whether your response to the gaslighter is going to be wrong. You feel scared and stuck to speak because, for some reason, you're not going to be able to articulate the meaning well enough to be understood. Now, keep in mind, speaking is your part. Receiving the message is the part of the other person. So if they're choosing not to listen to you, it's not about what you're about to say or not say. Avoiding telling anyone else what you're experiencing. You have got now so much self-doubt about you that you don't even want to talk to anyone about it because it might just prove that what the gaslighter is saying about you is true. You're not going to be able to explain yourself. So you avoid, you don't even go there anymore. Your mind just doesn't stop. It churns over and over these perceived character flaws, defined by the gaslighter, by the way. They're not actual character flaws. Someone put it in your head, such as, you're just being too sensitive. Why are you being so defensive? Oh, you're reading too much into this. Yeah, the problem is all on you, isn't it? Number 6, you find yourself constantly having to defend yourself. Or you're putting all this energy in trying to correct stories that the manipulator has put out there about the things, they've said you've said, or that they've said you've done. All telltale signs that you are being gaslighted. So now to the important thing. How do you deal with it? How do you deal with gaslighting? Well, the number 1 step is to identify the problem, naming it, recognizing it, it turns it into something real and something that can be addressed. Whilst it remains, a sense that something is wrong or you don't know what is going on, you can't explain it, you're confused. Whilst you're in that state, you can't actually deal with it. So giving it a name makes a huge difference. It is something real and it is something that can be addressed. And naming it also helps put the ownership of the problem back onto the perpetrator. The receiver might still have to deal with some of these impacts, but not the blame and certainly not the accountability. The blame and accountability sits squarely with the gaslighter. And this in itself is really powerful for anyone who has been subjected to that type of manipulation or is finding themselves in that situation right now. It releases them from that blame and ownership. Number 2, Well, remove yourself as far away as possible from the gaslighter, if you can. Unfortunately, many people feel they can't. They might be married to the gaslighter. It might be a member of the family. They might not have the funds to walk away from their spouse. They might not have the funds to walk away from a job or a boss who is actually trying to manipulate them. Now, if this is the case for you, psychoanalyst and associate director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, Robin Stern, says that the antidote to gaslighting is greater emotional awareness and self-regulation, both the knowledge and the practice. And one of the things I teach my clients when I work with them is that they are the ultimate authority of truth about themselves and their own lives. So if you feel that your perception of self, your perception of reality or of events is being undermined by someone, then it probably is. Your job is to take back your power and stand in your truth. Now, if you aren't sure of what the truth is, which can happen if you've been gaslighted for long enough, or if the gaslighter has done a really good job, effective job on you, then start journaling the conversations you've been having. Because you can then walk away and review those conversations and see where they are veering away from the manipulator's behavior and back to blaming you and all of your alleged flaws. So if you've sat down to talk to this person and you're bringing up their behaviors and talking about the impact that they're having, when you've journaled that, you will see where the conversation starts to turn and then gets focused back on you and all of your flaws, because really that's what they want to be talking to you about. Now, I can tell you from experience that being gaslighted sucks. And when you're in the midst of one of those really devastating scenarios, it can feel impossible to get out. You can protect yourself from these people and the damage that they cause. Because remember that what someone says about you does not define you. Their labels of you are not your labels. Their opinions are only opinions, and you may never be able to change someone else's opinion. So you need to let go of trying. The only person's opinion of you that you can control is yours. And yours is the only opinion on your life and who you are that counts. So excuse the French in this next bit, but really it comes down to this. Go tell your gaslighter to go shove their lies and their manipulations up their ass. Now, if you can't do it to their face, and yes, there are times where it's not in your best interest, you don't know what the response might be. You don't know if there's going to be a violent response at the end of that. You may not want to be fired from your job, so you're not going to go up to your boss and say, you can go shove your lies and manipulations up your ass. You might, if you get to the point where you just had enough and you make the decision I did, which was, I'm leaving, it's not worth it. But if you can't do that to their face, do it silently in your mind. Or even better, go find a room somewhere, a spot somewhere where you can speak and no one's going to hear you, and speak out those words. Go shove it up your ass. Because doing this, it's a simple act, but it is extremely cathartic. Stand your ground and really know that what is inside of you is far greater than any person or situation that you are dealing with. And I will catch you next time.